It's a beautiful day to have our EFTI talk. So we will give our audience a few seconds to check in. Good afternoon. Welcome to our EFTI talk. The Erica Friedenheim Tourism Institute, Department of Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Management, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access, Dean's IDEA Council in the College of Health and Human Performance at the University of Florida are presenting to you EFTI Talk. Our today's topic is diversity of talents, the journey to a bright future from leaders' experiences and insights. It is my great honor to introduce Mr. Bob Shiloh, who is the chair-elect for the EFTI Industry Advisory Board. He is our HHP THEM Gator alum and currently the Vice President of Franchise Operations at Jack in the Box. Mr. Shiloh will be serving as our moderator and one of our panelists today. Bob has over 25 years experience in the restaurant and hospitality industry. Currently, he is responsible for leading a franchise division of approximately 1,000 Jack in the Box restaurants across 14 states. Bob spent more than 2 decades as a leader in a variety of executive positions in project management, as well as leading companies and franchise operations in multiple regions across the country. Bob will introduce Mr. Scott Taylor, who is also our Gator. Bob will facilitate today's program. Audience, please type your questions in the chat box. Our speakers will answer your questions during the Q&A section. Mr. Shiloh, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Fu. And once again, good morning, everyone, or afternoon. It's morning out where I am in California, but good afternoon to all those on the East Coast. So it's my pleasure to introduce Scott Taylor to the group. I personally have been following Scott Taylor's career and what he's been doing at Walk On Sports Bistro for the last couple of years. Is an incredible talent within the restaurant industry, and so excited to have him joining our board. So let me give you a brief intro into Scott, and then I'll turn it over to him. So Scott grew up in Virginia Beach, and after graduating high school with honors, came to the University of Florida. And so in the industry, or the restaurant industry, currently serving on numerous boards, including the Multi-Unit Food Service Conference Advisory Board, Restaurant Directions Conference Advisory Board, Restaurant Leadership Conference Advisory Board, International Food Service Manufacturers Board of Directors, and the National Restaurant Association Food Safety Advisory Board. So I can tell you personally that I've just been watching the incredible growth the Walk On Sports Bistro has been having, and just really excited to have him joining our board this year. So on top of that, Scott did receive his Bachelor of Arts from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences from University of Florida. And Scott is currently finishing his MBA in global business from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And so I think I want to give him a lot of credit because our new Gator coach, coming from that university, I think I'm going to give Scott a lot of credit for potentially leading the way of recruiting our new coach here. So Scott, welcome to the talk. A big question I have for you, as well as I think would be really interesting for the group, is how did you become the president and COO at Walk On? And then also, just how did you end up there after, from where you started at University of Florida?
Sure. So, well, once again, thanks for having me, and excited to be part of the board and part of the EFTI talk today. So, yeah, it's interesting. I tell everyone that I work with, it's the power of relationships, and always, take a call and be willing to talk with people about anything, right? So, back in the days, living in Gainesville, going to UF, I never imagined I'd live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, by LSU. You can imagine Gators are super popular in Baton Rouge with LSU fans, but it's a great community. So I met the founders of Walk-On through a mutual friend that actually was consulting with them, and had reached out. I'd been with Beef O'Brady's in Tampa. We'd sold our company to private equity, and I was working through a workout period with that group, and it's going to take a little time off. Already kind of had a plan of where I was going to go, but hadn't really committed to it. And so there was an opportunity to go or come up to Baton Rouge and help out with a growing brand. They had 2 locations at the time, and really were in need of just systems, processes, way before franchising. You know, they had multiple brands, pizzerias, nightclubs, Irish pubs, all these different things. So, you know, I just kind of came up for fun to help a friend out, and then kept coming back and forth to Baton Rouge. Helped open up a couple of restaurants with them, and just fell in love with the brand, but more fell in love with, you know, the founders. And typically founders are not the easiest to work with. You know, it's their baby, they've created stuff. And so anybody coming in trying to tweak or improve on things, it can be a tough road. But, you know, Jack and Brandon at the time said, man, we just want to be great. If you can help us get better, we just want to get better. Very humble. And that kind of is that walk-on mentality we can talk about a little bit, but it's been great.
Well, I think, you know, from what you said, starting with 2, you know, and so it seems like every week or every other week, you're opening a new bistro across the country. And I know you just opened a big one or you're working on opening one right now in Mississippi. So, I mean, first, what number are you up to? You know, what's your, you know, do you know like an estimate and how many team members you now have?
Yeah, for sure. So we kicked off restaurant number 59 in Oxford, Mississippi this past Saturday. So I make a point to go up for orientation for every restaurant we open, welcome the team, talk about our culture, talk about the walk-on mentality, and, you know, really just embracing the fact that they've chose this industry to either, you know, work through college, maybe it's beer drinking money, maybe this is a career. But, you know, I kick off each one. So that's number 59. We'll open number 60. We'll kick off training in Birmingham Stadium Trace next Saturday. So I'll be in Birmingham kicking that one off. So we'll finish the year with 60, which is pretty crazy to think about. And, you know, I think we've got 24, 25 on the books to open next year.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of talent and a lot of people to make that happen. So I know you threw out the number to me earlier. Like, how many people did you hire just for this new restaurant alone in Mississippi?
Yeah, so we hired 150 new team members in Oxford. I want to say they had close to 900 applicants, which is pretty impressive. You know, and in a town where you're driving around and seeing now hiring banners everywhere. You know, we've got enough applicants to probably take all those banners down. So the team really did a great job just sharing the story of what, you know, being a walk-on is and being a member of our team. And I think getting that out on the front end got people excited. So, you know, but that's typical, 150 to 200 new teammates at every location to kick it off.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's like, you know I'm dealing with across the country. A lot of individuals come to me and they talk about the staffing challenges, or we're having difficulty getting people. And a lot of times when we actually look through some of the data, we find that it's not necessarily the getting people piece. It's actually the retention or keeping teams and people. So, you know, it's like building a culture. It's keeping people within your brand, being able to develop, you know, leaders for the next generation. So, you know, for us, I know you and I have talked a little bit about your culture. And, you know, what I would say is your symbols or sort of the mottos of your company. So can you just briefly just like, you know, I know that your big focus on culture and team. So, you know, anything there that you think would be a great takeaway, you know, that differentiates your brand from others?
Sure. I agree with you 100%. It's a turnover issue. It's not a hiring issue, right? And I think the restaurant industry as a whole kind of got called out, you know, last year, this year with wages and, you know, working, you know, just working people in not necessarily the most appreciative environments, not just financial, but taking people for granted. So, you know, our culture is a people first culture. You know, we look to build a team that that has like-minded people. We look at the hearts and minds. You don't have to have been a career server or career line coach. We can teach you the skills to work at a walk-ons. We can't teach you to be a good person. And so we really focus on hiring those people. They all get along. They want to work together. And so part of that is that culture. The other part I think is real important is, I'm sure, Bob, when you were growing up, I know when I was growing up, I never thought I would be in the restaurant industry at this point in my life. Never thought I was going to be in the restaurant industry. Just kind of fell into it. And I can remember my parents asking me, graduating from UF, so what are you doing why are you still working at restaurants? When are you going to get a real job? And I'm like, well, I think this is going to be a real job, and it has that stigma. I think it still has that stigma. So, we work hard to create a path for everybody that comes in, and the path can be into restaurant management with us, or it can be just a path to become a better person and learn life skills while you're here. And people gravitate to that, and they feel, being part of a team, if you've really ever been part of a team, that's a unique experience, and you rely on one another. And so we work so hard to create a true team environment where people can grow and excel and be different, and that's what makes a team, right?
Yep. Well, I had I think I went through some of the same questions or same even, choices. Like when I graduated from the University of Florida, I was in, thinking I wanted to go into, I knew I wanted hospitality. That's why I was in the program. And so, but I thought I wanted hotel resort. It wasn't until I spent a lot of time in my internship in the food and beverage side of a resort hotel that I really enjoyed that part of the business. So, and even then I was thinking more fine dining or casual dining. And then I end up in quick serve. And part of it is like, okay, I wasn't really planning on, in my mind, I wasn't planning on, becoming a restaurant manager. And at that point it was for Taco Bell. But I will tell you, it's like you can make something your own. And for us, it was the culture of our restaurant, taking care of teams. And I had a really great leader. It's the former CEO of Yum Brands, Greg Creed. And he had this statement that really resonates to me today. He says, the guest experience will never exceed the team member experience.
You're right.
And so if you go into a place and you're getting a miserable experience from, the team member in front of you or serving you, most likely I'm looking at that restaurant as having a bad culture or not taking care of the individuals on that team. And that resonates out to the guests. So I think taking care of your team, developing leaders, finding talent from multiple diverse backgrounds, and then working them up into a really solid team translates over. And that can be whether it's in fast food where I'm working or to, casual dining where you are.
Yep. 100%. And it's funny, I started in hotels as well. That was kind of, that hotels seem to be a better take. I worked for Marriott. My parents were cool with that until I wasn't at a hotel, I was in a restaurant. But, I think there's old school thinking, from managers and managers seeing that their customer is the person coming in, sitting at the table and eating, and not realizing that their customer is actually the team member. Managers and even the term manager is managing status quo. We look for leaders and leaders that understand that their customer is the teammate. Everything they should do should be about improving and making sure the teammate experience is great. They have the tools to work with to do the job. But they're never going to serve the table. They're never going to cook the food. If they are, then something's wrong, right? So that's your customer. And we're both in the franchise business. I think as a franchisor, our customer is the franchisee. It's not the person that's coming in to walk-ons to get fried alligator or coming in to Jack in the Box to get a burger. It's the franchisee. The franchisee's customer is their management team. The management team's customer is the hourly team. The hourly team's customer is the person at the drive-through for sitting at a table ready to order. So it's just a mindset change, and it's surprising to me how many brands out there really kind of have it flipped the other way. That the teammate's in the way of the relationship with the customer instead of realizing the teammate is the relationship with the customer, right?
Yep. Well, I know you and I talked a little bit when we were together in Gainesville about the need for talent, or, you're searching for talent for your own organization. And so I look at, there's both external talent recruitment, as you're going out and finding leaders, but there's also internal. So I'm interested in, any processes that you use, for developing your internal talent, let's say from someone getting hired on as either a cashier or, or a host, a server to, back of house operations to, how does that work to where, you hire on and then you move up through the organization?
Right. So, I think for a lot of us, I know for myself, I was working in restaurants while I was going to college. I was helping pay the bills. And, at one point, someone saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And all of a sudden, I got a little bit of additional responsibility. All of a sudden, hey, can you do the produce order? Will you check out the line tonight? And they created a path that I didn't even know was there. It wasn't something I was even looking for at the time. So, what we've done at Walk-Ons is kind of take that mentality, because I think a lot of people started out that way, that they were just put in a position as a key or whatever and kind of grew. So we have a program called Blue Chip, and Blue Chip, everything's kind of sports themed here, but a Blue Chip candidate, and the program is basically for anybody, whether you're a server, a line cook, a hostess, a bartender, that provides you a path to grow within our company. And it can be a path to become a key team member, where maybe you're working some management shifts, but you still have your hourly team position as a bartender or a cook. It can take you into management. It can take you into an operating partner role. You can become a franchisee, or you can just become a better person, because a lot of the program is about life skills and communication and how to talk with people, how to have conversations, how to get out in the community and do things in the community. So that's where I think a lot of times, people just kind of get caught up. That's like, I'm here for a little while, but I got to go find what I got to do the rest of my life. But if you have, they stick around.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, a lot of people ask, what's your greatest accomplishment? And you'll get one of those questions. And after thinking about that for a long time, I look at them and go, well, I think to me, the best thing I've ever gotten out of this business was my family, what I call the family tree of leaders that over the years that I've been able to develop, and they move on and take on additional responsibility. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the restaurant industry. They could have left the industry and been successful elsewhere, but because they spent time, within the teams that I was leading, I always felt like really proud about what they eventually accomplished. Yeah. I remember taking a team member who maybe didn't, that was, just coming in for that part-time role. I just need some spending money, or I need, to help out at the home. And now they're a team lead, an hourly manager, to becoming a salary manager for a Fortune 500 company, to where now, I have team leads that have now worked up and they're running large pieces of business. It changed the whole family dynamic that is, their heritage is like, now they have a home, they're saving for their children's college, funds. And so to me, I still look back and think like that is the biggest sense of pride I've ever had in the restaurant industry, is taking someone who maybe never thought that they could be running a large piece of business and helping them grow to where they now are either running, several hundred, it could be just running one restaurant. It's just, what do they want, and helping them get to that.
Absolutely, man. We taught, we do a Walk-Ons University. We bring in all of our, future operators from restaurants around the country, and our founder kicks it off and tells us, the story of the brand, where we started, and we take them through all the nuts and bolts of the business with different department support. But I close it out every time with our culture guy and our training guy, and talk about like, why are we here, really what sets you apart, because you can be a restaurant manager anywhere. We're not managers or leaders, but I think it's about finding the higher calling. And it's just what you said, why do you do this business? It's long hours. It's sometimes, because our guests are not always appreciative of everything. It can be a tough run, but it's the higher calling, seeing someone who started out as a hostess or a cashier or a busser, and see them grow into a better human being. I've got one of my favorites. I had a guy who was a busser who became a trainer. I was a senior vice president with Darden. And I'm like, you're a stud. Like, don't forget the local people. And he's killing it. And it's like, I just know that I got to spend a little bit of time with him and watch him grow. And he was fortunate to work with many great leaders along the way, but he's doing a phenomenal job. And it's like, man, you look at people and say, and the other thing it's interesting in our business, we get a lot of people and it's their first job. And so we really get a chance to put a stamp and help mold them as what they're going to see, in their working career, and how they communicate with a boss. They've never had a boss before. And what's that relationship like? And you can really set them up for success. I'm sure you've had ones that may not have the best home life. And sometimes parent, and you're the person to help guide them. So I just think it's a higher calling, man. If you look at it, they experience diversity like they may come from a school or environment where they've never had diversity. Well, guess what? You're in the restaurant, it's diverse. You're going to get all walks of life in there. So you get such a great life experience. That's why I do it, man.
Naturally in restaurants, I think you just, mentioned something that is key is restaurants are a diverse community. I operate restaurants, a big portion of my portfolio is in Southern California. And for those who haven't visited Southern California, it's an extremely diverse state. And so the individuals that I'm working with are from multiple nationalities and a lot of times maybe, first generation in this country. And a lot of times that's where, the first role would be working one of my restaurants. So for us, it's taking a diverse pool of talent and growing those individuals and finding the next generation leaders. So so the question for you is like, how do we make the case for diversity within our organizations and ensuring that we're constantly, pulling up a diverse group of leaders into the next role? How do we make that happen?
Well, I think it has to be purposeful, one, right? Depending on the levels of the organization. So, at operations, there's diversity, right? Yep. And when you get removed from operations is where it starts to get a little skewed, right? What's the management look like? What's the regional management look like? What's the corporate office look like? So, I think, it's just funny. I think if you surround yourself with people that think the same as you, what a boring place to be, right? I mean, that's the beauty of anything, is having varied opinions, varied life experiences. So I think brands that want to appeal to a broad audience have to have a broad audience as helping drive the brand. But it has to be purposeful, right? And then I think, in the individual locations, I think it's easier, and it's how do you pull from the location and continue to bring those people up into roles where they can have more responsibility and leadership with a brand. One thing we've done here, and I think a lot of brands have started to embrace, is getting hourly team members with management, purposefully diverse groups to look at everything you're doing. Some call them diversity councils, some call them different things. We call it our WOW council, or walk-on's way. But they look at training. They look at how we screen for new franchisees. They look at how we do on-job experience with a potential new manager. What questions should we be asking? Because they're the ones who are going to work with people. And so, and it's fun when you get together with that group that, if I sit in a meeting with them, or Brandon, our CEO, like we're nobody different than anybody else. Like, we have no additional voice or stuff. And they know that. So they're pretty open and honest with what's going on. But that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I just think you have to be purposeful to be diverse. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. And, there are a couple of things that I heard that just resonated with me. Was one, you're right, in operations tend to be, especially at the restaurant level, extremely diverse. But you have to be purposeful as you're developing leaders coming out of the restaurant operations and taking other roles. And then when you move into HR or finance, development, real estate, ensuring that you continue to develop a diverse team into those other, functionalities of the restaurant company. I know, like for us in Jack in the Box, we're very focused on, diversity, but we have to work against it. We have a team here called the Diversity and Inclusion Team, probably very similar to your WOW team, right? Where they're brought in from multiple different departments, and a key piece for us in our culture is really constantly asking serious questions about ourselves and about, are we including everybody? Are we truly, teaching, about different, different groups? And so, just over the last, a couple of key ones, recently would be, we just finished Filipino American History Month. So, it's like, or we just actually came out Hispanic Heritage Month. That was between September, October, but making sure you pause and to the moment and say, let's make sure that we're focusing on all cultures and all the, who is on our team. And then it even goes back into further things like, we provided resources and programming regarding women in the workplace. Racial injustice was a key piece, of what's going on the last 18 months. And then also, LGBTQ community, and making sure, because, within our restaurants and within, all of it, we have all, cultures and all groups. And, we have to make sure that we're being respectful to all of them. And then also, as we develop leaders up, I think that also helps us, continue to develop a diverse group of talent. Mm-hmm.
Agree 100%. It's, I think if you look at a job description, sometimes, the job description has the functions of the job, right?
Yep.
You're in accounting or whatever it may be, but you have to look at when you're adding somebody to the team, there's the cultural gap that you need to put on the team too. I need more women. I need more people of color. I need more Hispanic, whatever it may be. But because if you look at like I said, I think it's like, especially in the restaurant business, at the operations level, it's very diverse, but the customer base is very diverse. And it's like, how can you be in a bubble and not have diversity in the decision-making process when you're trying to get people to work for you and people to patronize your business? If you're inclusive and understanding those cultures, because they're different, right? I mean, everybody has a story, and so how you embrace that and how you incorporate that into your culture makes all the difference, man.
Yep. Now it's I want to ask a little bit about some pieces that I know that the program at Florida is working on. They're a big, they're focusing on AI and technology within hospitality and so forth. So I don't know if I'm actually now in discussions, with some external software companies regarding, hey, how can we potentially use AI in our recruiting? Or even, using it to interact with applicants and bring them to the table. So, I mean, it shows you what a small world it is, where I'm leveraging someone I went to school with. He's actually, he graduated from the THEM program at University of Florida, but he works for a software company focusing on supporting restaurants. And he's helping me find potential AI solutions for recruiting. And so where I'm like, hey, I'm going to leverage every relationship I can in this environment to go get me, a really great talent pool. So is there anything that, that you're utilizing or, within your recruiting tools that, new technologies and so forth?
Well, AI is so fresh and cutting edge, and because it's just a different way of engaging, right? And it's programmable engagement. So engagement is always the hardest thing to do, right? Did we call the person back? Did we follow up?
Yep.
Like in franchising, you have a drip campaign, right? But it's kind of emails and videos. But AI is kind of that drip kind of recruitment type thing where you can stay engaged with potential applicants. Experience, you can use AI to talk about the experience you're having. We haven't scratched the surface on that. I'd love to talk to your guy who's writing down.
I'll send it to you. So, yeah,
I mean, shoot, why not, right? But what we're really starting on now is just some of the social platforms. TikTok is one where that's where our hourly team is at. They're not on Facebook. They're not on. They're surely not looking on Indeed and all the things that we thought were the places to find people. So we're starting to share experiences. Like if you saw the Oxford, you saw the Rome. There's just a kickoff of training, but did some cool interviews with new teammates after that. What do you think of day one? And starting to post some experience things on TikTok that are just, here's so and so, they're here. It's day 3. You just tried the food for the first time. What do you think? And it's about I think recruiting is, I think there's the $15 minimum wage, there's all those things, but as you know, it's, I mean, you can make a lot of money doing a lot of things. You got to enjoy what you're doing. So I think
Yep.
technology can help, relay what your experience is to
Mhm.
work in a Jack in the Box or work at a walk-ons, and what's it like to be a member of the team here,
Mhm.
and just the engagement piece. That's where I think AI has got such a big play that we haven't, like I said, we haven't scratched the surface on. It's just that engagement where you can really kind of stay in touch.
Yep. And to me, it's like it's taking the old model, right? The old model, the really old model was you came in and you asked for an application, right?
Right.
That you filled out, and then you hand it and you hope that someone would call you back for an interview eventually, right? To where now it's a combination of it could be, you snap a picture of a QR code. From
Mhm.
there, immediately you're sharing some information from your phone, and then to where, how do we leverage AI? Well, AI at that point is like grabbing that data right there and starting a conversation with that applicant. We don't want to wait for someone, to have to come in, fill out an application, and then depend on somebody who's already busy to call that person back, right? How can you accelerate the process, to where we make sure we're not losing on the best applicants? And so if AI can basically start that interaction for us and accelerate the ability to have that conversation with that employee and explaining why they should come on board with us, that's where, we're leveraging new technologies at all times to accelerate and become more efficient.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was at a conference and somebody was talking about, recruiting your team. And he said, hey, take a moment, grab your phone, go to your hiring portal and
Mhm.
apply for a job at your restaurant.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I was like, I thought we were pretty good. And it's like you go online,
Mhm.
work here sounds great. Then I got to pick a location. Then I got to pick the position. Then I got to say I can upload a resume or I can fill out all the. And he's like, if it takes more than 2 minutes, they're gone.
Yep.
I'm not going to sit here and do all that. He's like, make it simple. Ask them about themselves. Don't have them upload a resume. Like resume, you can make up anything you want on a resume, right? Just
Mhm.
in there. If you like them, you can talk about that stuff. But if it takes more than 2 minutes, they're gone.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like I was trying to fill ours out. I was like, I don't even want to work here anymore. Like, and then it's slow, and it's on a phone.
Yeah.
It's taking forever to load. I'm like, oh my god, we're horrible.
I think what I take away from that though is from what you said. It's like the experience, right? Generational. It's like, okay, yeah, I've been in the industry 25 plus years. So what I did starting out is not what we should be doing today. And how
Right.
do you adapt and listen to, a diverse group of talent? It's like I really need to be listening to individuals say, how do you want to be recruited? Or how should I, right? Is it TikTok? Is it technology utilizing your phone? How long do I have to get you to fill out something to where I can have the conversation with you? And you have to be willing to adapt, or you're gonna be left behind.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. I started, when you start date, end date, position, rate of pay. I'm like, I was over.
Mhm.
You always did. You had to fill all that out. It was like, did you? I mean, man, just like what do you? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it must be working because 150,
Yeah,
900
well,
applicants for 150. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
we got a
really
long ways
jealous.
to go. We can definitely get better, but no, it's
Yeah.
storytelling is the big thing. That's what's really exciting about AI, man. You can tell your
Yeah.
story so much
All
better.
right. Well, no, I'd say I appreciate it. So I know there might be some questions from the audience or some of our other panelists. So I don't know. I will invite Rachel back to the screen. And so, hey, there you are, Dr. Fu. And so,
Yes, yep, that's a calling from AI. So I'm back.
Hey.
So for this Q&A, we do have a question. Bob, there's a question for you from our Edith Friedenheim, Miss Edith Friedenheim. In which 14 states can I find Jack in the Box restaurants? And what types of restaurants are they? Pubs, fast food?
yep.
Fine
So
dining.
Jack in the Box is traditionally you would think of us as like a restaurant or a hamburger restaurant, fast food restaurant, selling hamburgers, but we're so much more than that. We're actually located in 22 states and in the territory of Guam. And so we started in San Diego. Our brand was the first to do a drive-through a long time ago, and so so we're very unique, and we grew out of Southern California and sort of the car culture of Southern California. But so yes, we sell hamburgers. We're known for hamburgers, but we also have like a crazy menu that's available 24 hours a day. The whole menu is available. So you can come in and you can order a chicken teriyaki bowl. We'll sell you, you can have egg rolls. We sell tacos. I used to work for Taco Bell and had no idea how many tacos that Jack in the Box sold until I came aboard. I'm like, oh my God, we sell more tacos than Taco Bell does. So we have a really diverse menu of, hamburgers, indulgent food, to chicken, to salads, to teriyaki bowls and egg rolls. So it's, and as along with breakfast. So, and the other crazy thing about our brand is we serve the whole menu 24 hours a day. I don't judge. We're a judgment-free environment. We want a double cheeseburger at 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to make you a double cheeseburger. Same thing if you want a breakfast sandwich, at 8 o'clock in the evening, I'll make you a breakfast sandwich. So that's what our restaurants do. Mm-hmm. And we have about just under 2,200 restaurants right now, and we're working our way up to 2,500. Yep, we're aggressively looking on expansion. Mm-hmm.
Do you think you are going to open?
So just off Segan Lane in Baton Rouge.
Yep, we're heading toward the south. Yep.
Good. Yeah, that's my question. I was asking Bob, do you think which year you are going to open a Jack in the Box in Gainesville?
I'm working on it. We are actively recruiting new franchisees right now. So I do a lot of franchise interviews for talent. And so the closest that we're at is we're over into the outskirts of Mississippi. I have 11 restaurants in Nashville, and we have just under 30 in the Carolinas. So a big piece we have to solve for is making sure our supply chain and distribution centers are positioned in an area to where we can support new restaurant openings. But yes, we're actively looking at developing, through Georgia down into Florida over the next few years, and looking for franchisees to do that. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. We also have another question. What type of upward movement have you seen on salaries and rates since the pandemic hit?
I have, Scott, do you want to go first and then, or?
Sure. I mean, I think, we were always, I don't think we paid minimum wage. And I think it's just maybe the tier, we're a full service restaurant. We had to start $2-3 above minimum wage to get that team member in. So, it's made wages more competitive. I think we had some locations that probably needed to go back and reevaluate what their pay scales were. So we've seen wages rise. And I think it was a good thing. Mm-hmm. It needed to happen. And I think wages could rise without having to pass it all to the customer. And I think that's where you get a lot of times your restaurant executives talk about, we'll raise wages, but we're going to pass it all on to the customer. I mean, there's a little bit of efficiencies you can determine. There's other ways for restaurants to be, wages have definitely increased. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And for me, it's I would agree that wages have definitely increased in the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, they were starting to increase. Now, I also operate restaurants in Seattle, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and in California. And so in these states, we actually were dealing with, we have higher cost of living. So generally the wages, have been higher than national. And we have to make sure that we're always competitive and can bring in a number of applicants. So we're always evaluating where we're at for different bands of responsibility, and make sure that we're always competitive. You never want to be, below the rest of the competition. So that's a constant, work that we're doing in all, from the team member level all the way to the highest exec. Always looking to make sure you're competitive. The other piece that, if you want to talk about sort of innovation that we're sort of looking to do, Now, Scott, you can take this and run with it, but I don't, hopefully no one else from the industry is hearing this. We operate 24 hours a day. And so for us, it's, for us and growing our sales and growing our business and profitability, we need to be staffed 24 hours a day. And some of these shifts aren't always as, individuals don't, they're not as attractive as others. So things such as differential pay, it's like, okay, if for the tougher hours, or tougher shifts to operate, well, differential pay might be, well, what's add on to the hourly wage for those shifts? And so we're attracting individuals like, hey, yeah, I'm willing to go work that shift because it's actually getting $2 or $3 more per hour to operate then. Well, those are different things that, that we're also looking at. And part of it is technology has to catch up. Sometimes when we do this to make sure, we're fully staffed and we're providing, meaningful wage, we might have to do that manually, to go in and adjust hours or pay to make sure we get it right. And so we're actively working on making sure technology catches up to what we need to do to make sure, our wages continue to be competitive. So.
Yeah, I would like to follow up what Bob and Scott, you both have been talking about artificial intelligence, which is a big movement and also preparation for our future leaders. And that's another kind of industry revolution. So how would you foresee that AI would affect your employees, and how can your company help hire and train accordingly? So do you have any plans? And again, how you can use the AI data science to improve guest experience and further? Would you like to provide maybe some thoughts, some experiences and cases?
Well, we're actively looking at how AI technology can be implemented within our restaurants to help the team member or help the leader become more efficient. So, and I'll just give you a couple examples to where things that we're sort of looking at. It's the old way or the traditional way of operating would be like every 30 minutes, you should, we would call it a guest satisfaction walk, or there's different things, but the leader of the restaurant should actually be, doing a rotation around their restaurant to see the condition, in fast food, you have the parking lot. When was the last time someone checked the restrooms, the parking lot, and so forth? But here's an example of AI. It's AI to be more, efficient. Instead of having to go walk and do a checklist, it's like, how many times has your restroom door been open in the last 30 minutes? If your restroom door hasn't been open in 30 minutes, you really need to go do a restroom check at that point. Or is there a way to use interactive cameras to like track how dirty your parking lot is? It's like, okay, hold on, we might need to go check the parking lot. It could be monitoring your grills to say, okay, we know that you've actually put this much product through your grills. Based on sales, you're under where you should be on your build to. So you actually need to drop product right now because you are going to run out of product for customer demand. And potentially how you're using AI intelligence to actually help you, satisfy your guest and make sure that, you're more efficient for the guest. Now, there's other things that we're looking at, robotics or different type of, you put something into the POS. POS is point of, it's our register. So we, point of sale. And so when you put something into point of sale, that would trigger something else, whether, you've probably seen at McDonald's, they make the drinks automatically based on what you put into the point of sale. That helps, with efficiencies and helps the teams, execute against high volume. So we're constantly working, internally or with external vendors on this type of technology to, help the teams as we move forward.
So I think there's, and I agree with all of that too. I think the opportunity, in full service restaurants, is one being online ordering. So there was a big movement to online ordering, and back in the day when you would call a restaurant and talk to somebody on the phone, our POS system could pull up and say, Rachel, you're ordering. I see do you want to get the the hickory burger and the crawfish etouffee like you got last time. I could see your last order. I can have a personalized conversation with you. And it's like, okay, they remember me. Well, it's triggered. When I put your phone number in, I know what you call up, I know what you ordered. Well, it doesn't happen on online ordering. So I think there's an opportunity to have AI engagement where it's personalized and you're communicating with somebody that gives you that personal experience, but I don't actually have to have someone answer the phone to do it. I think that's huge, huge opportunity for us. And I think we were talking about it earlier with the recruiting, and just kind of that drip campaign where you can follow up, but you can geofence around your market for people looking for jobs. I think you can engage with them on the recruitment side. And then I think even from a cultural standpoint, as you're doing things with your existing team, I think AI is just seamless engagement, right? And so it can be set up in a way where it's personalized, it's fun, it learns and gets to know you. And so I think I might have given the example. There's a hotel in Las Vegas called the Cosmopolitan. So when you check in, they have, I think the AI's name is Rose. And it's like, hey, Scott, welcome back to the Cosmo. Are you looking to have a drink? Or we haven't seen you since June. Great to see you. It's so funny. It's like a text thread. And depending on how you text back depends on how the conversation goes. It can be, have a great time. I'm just tired. I want to go to my room, and Rose responds accordingly. But it's a very personalized experience that there's somebody that grabbed me at the front desk when I was checking in that did. It all happened on my phone through a text with AI. So it's just so many cool things, I think, to engage in different ways.
It's wonderful. One thing I really like about what you both have mentioned about the diversity of talents, diversity of menu selections, and again, using AI, it's all about predicting customers' behavior. So for our industry, you want to provide greater services. And again, diversity of background is how you want to put your leadership team together, diversity of talents, diversity of culture, diversity of background, all of the above, and how they can combine with artificial intelligence, putting the strongest group together. Everybody will be in the right position and to grow and to really help each other. As you both have mentioned, the true leader is when you see your team, it's a winning team because you bring into a good people. That's what you want to hire. And that's how our higher education, we are here. We want to provide opportunities through our industry's support and through our knowledge. So I want to thank you so much for today's section. And I also have one more thing. I think our students will really benefit from your insights. Would you like to tell our students and our audience about what has helped you get to where you are? And what advice would you have for others who want to set off in a similar direction? I think you touched on a little bit in the beginning, but I would like to hear more insights because I know it's such a diverse industry. Scott and Bob?
Okay, sure. I'll go first. So, like I said in the beginning, it wasn't an industry that I thought I would be in for the rest of my life until I realized that it really was an industry that you could impact people's lives, from a customer or a guest walking in the door to a teammate immediately. You had immediate impact. It wasn't something where I didn't get to see the results of my behavior or my actions. So that's what's kept me in it. I think what's keys to success for me is take risks, don't get comfortable. I think it's important to put yourself out there, and put yourself in a position where you can make the biggest impact. And sometimes, as you're growing in the industry and you start out at a junior level, no one's necessarily always ready for the next level, but you can put yourself out there and you figure it out and you learn. And I think that's important, is just take risks. And if there's an opportunity, if you do something, stretch and be involved. The other part I think is important is that the power of relationships. You meet so many people along the way. You never know when that relationship is going to benefit you down the road, whether it's Bob's guy he's going to share his contact with the AI recruiting thing. I mean, but that's somebody he's kept in touch with that you just never know. So the power of, take a phone call, return an email, whatever it may be, because you just never know who that person is and how they can impact your life or how you can impact their life.
So much of what Scott says just resonates with me as well. Relationships. I would say, it's being able to work within a team. I love working within a team. I really get a lot out of, the team environment. And I go back to even like the University of Florida. It's like, I remember how many of my courses required that we work in a team of 3 or 4 people, to a project completion. That skill actually, resonates outside of the university, because you're going to be working with a cross functional team full of diverse people, in business, and being able to work well within a team environment and everybody contributing or being responsible for something, but ultimately everybody owning the final product is absolutely essential, in industry. And so I take that around. And so being able to work well with others, being able to communicate well, being able to, represent what you're doing and be, the whole team succeeding as one. I think that environment is exactly what business is. No one is doing it on their own, especially in the restaurant industry. You are dependent on a lot of other people for success. And then the other thing Scott mentioned was, the next role. I can tell you I can't tell you how many different titles I've had. And I had leaders that saw something in me and developed me and challenged me. And I remember one leader, Deb King. I remember I show up at a meeting and she's like, "You're presenting this in 2 hours." And so I'm in the back, like game ready. But it was a challenge to where putting you out of your comfort zone, making sure you get in front. And now I'm presenting in front of 60 other fellow, restaurant managers. But it was that type of challenge. So I look back and going, yep, it's like, I'm not afraid to get up in front of 60 restaurant managers and speak to them now, because I had a leader that, that would challenge me in that way. And then it's just and then when you go take that next role, I've never felt like in this role, I'm a VP of franchise operations. Well, before I was a VP of franchise, I'd never been one before. And so it's like, you always have that like, oh God, don't screw this up. You're right. I'm going to take this bigger responsibility, and just know that others will be there to support you. You'll have time to figure things out. If you don't know something, I just tell people, I'm sorry, I don't know, but I'm going to go help, please help me figure this out, and we'll figure it out together. And so, there will always be a learning curve. You'll catch up, you'll become more efficient. And then a year from now, people will be asking you all the questions, and somehow you'll just know the answers. And so that's how it works.
I'd add one thing. I think never be afraid to train your replacement. And I think that a lot of times it's, once again, being uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable, but to grow, somebody has to do what you do. So always be willing to share and teach somebody else, to give them that opportunity, because that opens you up for another opportunity.
Yep.
That's kind of how things go. And the further you go up the food chain, like Bob knows as well, it's like you have more responsibility, but less direct control. But if you've done it the right way, you built this team underneath you that you encouraged and put in positions to be successful. And then once again, the team crushes it. You're just part of the team, bigger or anything else. You may lead the team, but your voice is no different than anybody else's.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I really love this philosophy, from good to great, because
great.
A big heart prepare for the incoming leaders. Here's one more I would like to ask you. This is from one of our students. What are the top 2 challenges in the restaurant industries at this moment, considering about the new variant and the recovery process, reopening, and then now some incoming news everybody is waiting to learn?
Mm-hmm.
I think supply chain, I'll throw that out right now. And that's a product of having people in positions to work and feeling safe to go to work. And that a lot of that has to do still with, insecurity, unsure, about going back to a job in a factory with a lot of people and who's not vaccinated, who's vaccinated. So it's just a different, we're still trying to navigate through a pandemic. And I think there's some that think it's over. And there's and there's some that are kind of like, we need to make sure that everybody is comfortable. When we do that, and that everybody is in a position to be safe, we can get past the supply chain issues, which I think the other one would say would be staffing. I think staffing is a byproduct again of like feeling comfortable going back to work. Obviously, opportunities in the right workplace. Those would be a couple for me.
Yep. Yeah, it's supply chain staffing, because when we say supply chain, you're right, it has to do with staffing. And a lot of, if we're working with large manufacturers or their lines, they've been working overtime to catch up and repopulate the supply chain. And they've been doing it. We'd be notified by a supplier that, I'm sorry, our production line shut down because we only had half our production team come in. And so the ripple effects across the industry, from, one manufacturer or supplier, and then from trucking industry, there's a shortage of, truckers right now. You're like, how did this happen? Well, some people chose to retire out of the industry, at the beginning of the pandemic. And then there's time it takes to train up the replacement. So, from supply chain, is drastic. The other part that we're working with now is really, how do we do with, we now have the Omicron variant happening, but we're also dealing with OSHA. OSHA just came out with new nationwide requirements regarding testing and workplace rules that we've been waiting on a national ruling, because we're dealing with, prior to OSHA's ruling, we were dealing with state and then, city and then local jurisdictions, each having their own rules. And so as a large business like ours, we have to be nimble and go, hold on, Orange County, California has one set of rules for operating, but LA County has another, including we have to do vaccination checks for anybody who's sitting down in the dining room. So now I have to make sure that I have a team member that I have, trained up appropriately to deal with the complications of asking someone to validate their vaccination status. And so having this type of multiple rules across the country makes it very difficult for a large organization, where it's much easier to actually execute against one set of rules from a federal level than it is a myriad of rules from a local jurisdiction. So every day it's something different that we just have to solve for. Yep.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I want to thank you so much, Scott and Bob, for your leadership, for being the role model of our students, for being so supportive, helping our students to get the paid internship, and you build up the career opportunities. And personally, you also serve as our mentors for many of our students, also been a mentor of my career. Thank you so much. Audience, our students, colleagues, faculty members, I appreciate you and your presence. I hope you will enjoy our webinar as much as I have enjoyed having you as our audience. I look forward to seeing you all soon again. And my winter holiday wish is I hope the medical area can find something like a gummy bear. We all take chewing one gummy bear, then we will be virus free. So yeah, yep. Yes. So thank you so much. You all have a wonderful day.
Thank you too. So thanks again, guys. Take care.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Absolutely.